DMAC here at the house. Going to be telling you how to mount your snowboard bindings. There's a few different ways, out there, different like bindings like the EST, Burton 3-hole versus a 4-hole. They're all pretty similar, and you get the gist from this video. What I'm going to be doing today is mounting up on this beautiful LibTech board here. It's got a 4-hole pattern. We're doing some very sexy Union Danny Casses, which have a 4-hole plate to them. You'll see Burton running the 3D hole pattern. Pretty simple to transfer it from the 4-hole to the 3-hole, so I'll show you this one. First off, you've got your binding with the base plate open like such, and then you're going to have a disc. The Unions will have the slots running open like this. When you're first starting out, you're going to want to place the disc in the center of the binding, but place it so that the slots run from edge to edge. This is going to help you fine-tune the toe and heel overhang of the system. If it does end up that you're right in the center, you can turn it sideways like this, and that can adjust, your width. If you're on powder, you can set it back further. If you're on park, you can center it up. But that just allows you to get a little bit more adjustment in between the inserts themselves. So, for instance, here we're going to have the rear binding. You're always going to want to mount it with the ratchets pointing towards the nose or the tail, pointing out from the board. So it's pretty easy here. Just going to take your disc and insert it at the angle that you want. And as far as angle goes, if you haven't snowboarded before, a really good place to start is 15 degrees, a positive angle in the front with the toes pointing towards the nose of the board, and say like 9 to 12 negative where the toes are pointing towards the rear. This is a really stable, steady stance. If you stand on like a coffee table chair or whatever and jump off, if you note the position that your feet are at naturally when you land, they're splayed out diagonally away from the body. This is going to give you more stability. If you have them just straight across the board, you're only controlling about that 5 or 6 inches of the board, where once we turn them sideways, you're now controlling like 9 or 10. It gives you a lot better feel for the board, a lot better control over the board. So for on this one, for instance, we'll just be setting up with the, say, negative 12. And then for the front, we'll do that 15 positive that I discussed. Now, stance width is another thing. If you're a freestyle park rider, you're probably going to want to look for one of the widest stances on the board. This is also true if you're a taller person. Basic rule of thumb is you want the high backs to be just a little bit wider than your shoulder width. But like I said, a lot of park stuff, you're going to bang it out further away. If you're more of a carver, more of a free rider, you tend to keep them a little bit closer together. Once you determine your stance, and personal preference here is definitely paramount. Experimenting with it a little bit each time before you go out, and seeing how you like it is definitely the best way to find your stance, because you're never going to find your stance just throwing them on the board the first time. Once you determine that, all these bindings will come with the hardware as well as the discs. What you can do here, dump it on the board surface. So you're going to have, for the 4-hole, 8 screws and 8 washers. Now, if you look on the screw here, it does have thread lock already as part of the screw itself. This is going to ensure that it stays tight once it goes into the insert. The only thing you want to do is really avoid using any kind of aftermarket thread lock or seam tape, because what that's going to do is it's going to pool up in the bottom of the insert, and then next time you go to put the screw in there, it's going to push the base out from the insert. So just make sure that if you lose the thread locking on the hardware, just come on us, call us up, pick up a new set. It's going to save you a lot of headache as far as not poking the base out. Now what you want to do is just kind of get, and hello, you just want to get all the screws into the washers so that you're ready to go. Then from there, you just line it up, where you want it on the board, and you just stick 4 screws in, just kind of lining them right over the inserts. And then usually when you're doing this, you just want to use a regular hand tool. Number 3 Phillips head screwdriver is going to be the screw size for all the binding hardware. As long as you use a hand tool, you can't over tighten it, you can't strip out the insert. And it's just a really nice way of maintaining the inserts. What you want to do is start with one and just do a few turns. You don't want to tighten the first one down all the way, because then as you get into the third and the fourth one, they're going to be off and it's going to cause you to cross thread the board. This is one of the things we see most in the warranty area. It's very important that you just start each of the screws by a couple turns, and then once you have all of those you can still slide the base and see where you want it in relation to the board. Now is a really, really good time to stick the boot into the binding, tighten up the straps, and then look down the board and make sure that the toe and heel are overhanging the same amount. You don't want to have the toes overhanging by 2 inches while the heels are flush with the back here. You want to make sure that it's balanced. Anywhere from like a half an inch to an inch of overhang is still acceptable, because it's going to take the board a really high angle to cause you to wash out. But you just want to make sure it's centered. Once you find the proper position for the boots, you're going to go back in and you're really going to crank down on it, locking it in place. And since you've already started all of them, you don't run the risk of cross-threading. Now this is something you're doing when you're mounting it, but with all the vibration associated with the sport, especially if you're riding icy hardpack terrain, or say you're doing a lot of metal in the park, stuff like that, a lot of jumps, you want to check your stuff at least every other time out, if not every time out. Just give it a quick tug and make sure it's still tight in there, because even on the nicest bindings, they will loosen up over time. Now in a lot of companies, you're going to be done at this point. Union takes it a step further and provides a base plate cover. You will see this on some other models. Basically, this will determine how far the toe ramp comes out of the binding. A lot of the other bindings will have an adjustable toe ramp from the underside of the binding. So you want to make sure you have it set in the proper place to match up with the boot before you put it down to the board, because once you put it down to the board, it's not adjustable anymore. Same thing should be said for the toe strap itself. Most of these will mount from underneath the binding now and be held in by a pin. So once you put them on the board, they're going to be in that spot. So you want to kind of do a dry mock-up with the boot and ensure that the straps are in the right position, they go all the way over, and then also quickly adjust the strap length, making sure on the strap that the ratchet, even when it's tightened down, is about maybe an inch from the base plate. Some people will have quick release hardware. Some people will just have Phillips head stuff. Pretty easy to do, pretty straightforward there. But like I said, at least on the toe strap, make sure you got in the right position, forward or back, before you mount it down to the board. Once you get the footbed where you want it, you're just going to screw in a little screw, such as this one. And that is going to complete the base plate being mounted to the board. Final adjustment, and this is something that not everybody is going to need to do. You can adjust the heel cup to fine tune how the binding sits on the boot. Usually this will be done by loosening these 2 screws on the side right by your ankle strap. And then the last thing you can do is high back rotation. This is something that definitely not everybody does. I insist on doing it on my boards. If you note the high back angle right now, it's at a different angle than the board edge itself. If we loosen these 2 screws, there's different positions we can mount it at to twist and make this high back more parallel to the board edge itself. That just gives you a really smooth forward to backwards motion and ensures that the high back is always directly behind your leg for that really good heel side response. Different bindings are going to have different bells and whistles, different ways of adjusting it. This is a basic rundown, of the install. But if you ever have any questions, you can always give me a shout.